It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Greetings and salutations, fellow Homo sapiens and floofs who may be watching with you, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical, humanist perspective. My name is Cynthia, and today we'll be discussing things, and that because that's what we do on the Nonprofits. We discuss stuff, all right? So, like in the first segment, we're going to be discussing Satanists who will be suing the Pennsylvania school district for rejecting an after-school Satan club. Next, we'll be moving on to Alabama, where a librarian and her husband wanted to adopt a child, but their lack of religion became a barrier. Moving on to what the freak, Florida, where Florida bans 54 of its school math textbooks for trying to indoctrinate students. Half of the prohibited titles feature critical race theory. I was about to get that out. Oh, we're past 2 minutes. Great. So what the fuck, Florida? They're banning books, people, because they're too woke. Okay, Jessica, it's gonna be okay. Make sure you get smart, honey. It's fine. And then we talk about a step in the right direction, where atheists spurred by growing ranks, gathering for the first time since the start of the Rona. Since Rona done reared her ugly head, atheists are finally gathering in the Hotlanta area. And I did say my name, right? Great. That part got out the gate without a problem. Okay. You all forgive us. We were being very silly, and it has like spilled into the recording, and we do apologize for that. But hey, that's what you came and tuned into this runaway train for something. So this is what we do. Okay. But I promise you, we are going to have some thoughtful commentary for you. I promise you that. So let me go ahead and introduce the panel. Starting from my far left, all the way across the pond, is our resident scholar of religion, Richard Gilliver. Hello, my love. How are you?
I'm very good. You keep saying this scholar of religion thing, and it's just not true. I don't know where you've got that from. You see books and you make implications that just aren't there.
Evidence would say otherwise, Richard, because I've heard you give commentary on religion, and sometimes your commentary on religion is better than the scholars. I just want to say that. And I'm not gassing you up. I'm telling you the TRUTH, which is a matter of perspective, but it's my perspective, and that's all that matters. Moving on. I'm sorry, what were we going to say, Richard?
No, nothing. Tayo's more important anyway.
Richard, I was going to say something about English. A scholar is somebody who has read a lot, and I think that those books behind you tell us something about it. That's my hypothesis. Sorry, Cynthia.
Oh, and it is testable. How about that? It is falsifiable. Speaking of, Teo, hey, how you doing? All the way from down south, further south than down.
Yeah, totally non-pixelated this time. And Cynthia, you are saying that we are being silly. Come on, have you seen anything more serious than a cartoon? Just asking. I'm just asking questions.
Cartoons can be serious.
Totally. I'm the perfect example.
Yes, exactly. And welcoming back to, I'm sorry. Welcoming back to the nonprofits, Miss Jessica Bluemke. Hello.
Hi. Oh, thank you for having me back. Sorry, I bring a really weird energy to anything I do.
Oh, the audience, they're for it. It's all good.
They
It's
missed
all...
some Three Stooges stuff in the background. It was a mess.
But we are here, and we are here to do a show. But before we go on, Jessica, if we just want to go ahead and just like remind folk who you are, what to do, all that great, warm, gooey stuff.
Thank you. So if anybody has heard of me, it's because I'm the co-host of the Friendly Atheist podcast with Hemant Mehta. So you can hear us on all of your regular podcast situations. I'm the lady one who swears and yells a lot, and people don't particularly like. But yeah, it's a podcast I'm extremely proud of, and I'm just thrilled to be back on here.
Awesome. Well, we love swearing and yelling here at the nonprofit, so you will fit in just
Just
fine.
my two main outlets, swearing and yelling.
You know
I was
what?
very fun to grow up with.
That's what you call self-care.
This is what I am saying. This is correct. This is how I take care of myself as I yell at hypothetical human beings on a podcast. It works well for me. My therapist has no notes on my lifestyle, so we're great.
That part, and we believe in mental health and behavioral health here at the nonprofit.
Go see a therapist.
Yes.
I have a therapist and a psychiatrist. Woo!
All that. And if you need medication, do that stuff too. But before we actually even get into that, no, we're not going to get into that, but we will get into this, saying that this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. As with all of our shows, links to today's topics and news we discuss, are available in the description below. Like, no, we're here like talking, but like we are not available in the description below, except for our names, but not like our physical forms. But the articles that we're going to talk about are in the description below. Everybody point down.
I'm available in the chat, just saying.
You can always tweet me. I'm never sleeping.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, it just got weird. And a reminder that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the nonprofit's Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. Yes, there you go. Right there is where you can go. There you go. We gave you the information. Let's go ahead and move on to segment number 1. And I believe that Teo, you are leading us into this.
Your favorite cartoon right here. And I'm so happy that Jessica is here because she works with Hemant Mehta. And guess who wrote this amazing article that we're going to check? No, it wasn't me, people. It was Hemant Mehta. So go check it in the description. Yeah, he's amazing. And I agree with a lot of things that he says in here. So I'm going to take it, to my realm. But before that, what is this article all about? Everybody, please check it. It's called Satanists will sue PA school district for rejecting after-school Satan club. What is this all about? Well, I love reading Hemant Mehta. I love this guy. So he's telling us how this specific group was rejected by the school on basis of beliefs of people. And we have talked several times about what Satanists actually are. They are not really a group of evil people wanting to worship Satan. They mostly don't even believe in Satan. The only ones who believe in Satan are Christians. And that is where I want to go. Because, I tend to talk about the harms of religion. And I believe that magical thinking and all the fear that is related to magical thinking is one of the biggest problems that we have with religion. These people, they are not opposing this small school club because they are bored people or because they want children not to have fun. No, they actually believe that these people are Satan worshippers. And when somebody tries to explain, I'm going to quote the article in here. When local resident Dina Weaver attempted to educate everyone on what the Satanic Temple actually teaches, things like how we should act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures, and if one makes a mistake, one should do one best to rectify it, she was summarily rejected by the religious mob that, who you can guess, were totally going against this idea. And somebody, sorry, no, not somebody. I'm not reading that. I'm going to keep reading about what Weaver said. She said, "What is objectable about all of that?" And immediately the whole auditorium erupted, commenting and shouting stuff. And she had to go back to her seat because she actually realized, and I'm going to keep quoting the article, that they fear so much that there is an actual Satan that they feel even trying to understand what it is all about will go against their souls and could even curse them. And Hemeth Meta finishes saying, "I guess I should quote this once again." And he goes to explain that the Satanic Temple doesn't believe in a literal Satan, and that the clubs is not about indoctrination, and rather than, quoting again, focus on free inquiry and rationalism, the scientific basis for which we know what we know about the world around us. It's like a science club with a devilish twist. And I guess I do feel that the Satanic Temple and Satanists in general, people who belong to the Satanic Temple and show Christians why there should be a separation between church and state, they do wonders by explaining people why they should separate church and state. As soon as you give religion the authorization to put their own statues, oh, then we can put Baphomet. And then they realize, oh yeah, maybe I don't want this freedom from all religions. So my question is, are we going to make people realize that Satanic are nothing but a group that is using a weird name to do stuff? Or is this inducing fear into these people who actually believe in Satan and who are afraid of that? I'm still thinking about that. I don't know about you guys, and I know that you have so many interesting things to say about this, so I'm gonna let you go now. But I'm still thinking about that. Is the Satanic Temple is great to talk about separation between church and state, but is it going to help at schools because these people actually fear Satan? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. So I want to hear you people. Who wants to take it from here?
I mean,
Jessica.
Sorry, I was
Yeah,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
this is definitely a thing I talk a lot about, and has always been something that has been uncomfortable for me to think about. Is these stories that we see a lot of, and maybe not as much anymore, but certainly maybe 5 or 10 years ago, there's a Christian scene on City Hall. With the Jesus in the manger and we see that all the time, and it's always been a very clear separation of church and state. However, and I am not saying that anybody who is fighting against things like this is wrong, by no means. Every time these stories get picked up, atheists just sort of come out looking like assholes. And truly, like, that is a thing that I often struggle with. And like, we all on this panel understand like what the Satanic Church is and all of that. But I don't know that it's fair to assume that everybody else in the country, especially in more conservative areas, understand what that means. It reminds me a little bit of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, that it was a very clear thing of like, here is how we are trying to make you understand what we're going through. However, we're always going to keep running into this when we are using purposely provocative titles. And that's not a fault on the Satanic Church or the Satanic Temple. It's just one of those things that we have to decide, do we want to be glib and right, or do we want to maybe make ourselves a little easier to, like, a little more palatable? And I don't know if that's the right thing to do. That's just how I always land.
Yeah, I
Richard,
want to
what you
piggyback
got?
on that that just piggybacking on that a little bit. That was the standout thing as well for me in this article. It was the first thing I wrote in my notes, and that was, would these parents have complained if it was Muslims or Sikhs or Buddhists who wanted to start the club? And that's a very, very important point. Are they banning it because they don't understand it or because it's different? And this is something I think that we need to kind of get through. And just as Jessica said, are we being kind of ignorant of the real fears that these people might have? And make it clear that it's a very good thing that the Satanic Temple are doing, and they always have been very good at kind of pushing these things. But at the same time, I think we need that hand in hand needs to go with educating people on what the Satanic Temple is, rather than just having them challenge things. We need to get those things out hand in hand, so people aren't giving a knee-jerk reaction and rejecting it just because of the name.
Yeah. Well, I think that a couple of things should be highlighted when we're talking about this specifically. Like, how are people reacting as soon as you hear Satan in the title of anything that you're trying to present, especially when you're talking about introducing this term with an after school program? And I think that one of the things that one of the parents said, specifically, her name was Jody Osborne of Wellsville, who actually delivered. This is something that was in one of the articles that we read, because like there's an additional link people you should follow. But one of the things that she said is that I am sad all we are talking about is Satan. It's not about Satan. It's about God. And she said then, wrongs will be righted. And if we don't start standing now, we're going to lose our nation. So, this is a sentiment for these 300 parents who actually came and attended this meeting, who were against this particular after school program. Because even the one of the articles mentioned that the whole purpose of this particular satanic after school club was explained. And as Teo mentioned, they were saying that this club is not doesn't promote Satan. It doesn't promote any type of ideals that are associated with Satan, especially if anybody was around during the 80s and 90s. If anybody remembers the Satanic Panic, yeah, none of that. It's none of that. However, that is the image conjured into one's head, who happens to glean really onto religious or especially Christian ideals concerning this whole thing. I'm going to open it back up to the floor. Jessica, you wrote a couple other things concerning about, like, some of the frustrations that you also observe concerning this particular story.
Yeah, so I think, and I kind of talked about it, that it's atheists always are the bad guys. It just, no matter what we do, the sort of like public sentiment is atheists are here to ruin your fun or whatever. Like that seems to be
But Jessica,
what
we
we end
are.
up with over and over. Oh my God, I hate fun. I famously hate fun. Thank you for bringing that up so I can talk about it now.
No
Fun is
problem.
terrible. Only be sad. But and so when I see things like, I just think we all and as somebody who did not grow up religious, I think people who maybe did grow up religious might have a better understanding of there's long-term effects with like things like Satan. And so when you say like to a very nice Christian person that we're representing Satan, like it might as well say like, hey, it's us, Hitler's friends. Like it to them is the definition of evil that atheists are trying to rebrand. So I don't know. The thing is, now we are their rallying cry. Like we heard that wrongs will be righted. Another person said, you shouldn't be here. There's no room for you here. If this freaking group gets voted in, let's do something about it. We have now, and I want to be clear, these kids are doing the right thing. If these kids are trying to form a club for themselves and for their community, that's great. But we have sort of teed ourselves up to be the bad guys here. And if you are a good Christian person in a good Christian community and you just hear atheists coming in of like, hey, we're not just atheists, we're Satan's club. We all understand what that is trying to explain and put forth, but all they hear is these guys are teaming up with the bad guys. These guys are Wario or whatever. Like it it's not wrong, but it's certainly not helping in terms of like, I'm a marketing professional. It is not helping in terms of a marketing perspective. If you want to marry your brand with Satan, you're going to deal with the blowback of that. And it's a good example of why separation of church and state is so important, because obviously they talked about, oh, well, we've never had like Muslims want to come and do this. And like, yeah, of course you haven't, because they don't feel safe to do so, or they just simply don't exist. So we made a they made a choice. They went to this issue of we want atheist representation in our school, and they chose to take a pretty hardcore turn. We're using the word Satan, knowing that this is something that's really evocative for people. So this stuff is going to keep happening, and we're just going to have to keep being clear that what we are for is morality and protection of people and protection of the most vulnerable of us, the queer community and so forth. But if we're going to frame it around Satan, we're going to keep getting this blowback. It's just going to happen.
Actually, I want to take into what you said about people growing up a believer, because I grew up being a believer. And for me, whenever I heard the name Satan and Satanist for a long time, and actually, I remember being an atheist for a long time. For me, a Satanist was just somebody who believed in Satan, and it was. I'm sorry, I know that I'm going to get a lot of backlash for what I'm about to say, but for me, it was very stupid trying to take the idea of trying to have the idea of the Satanic Temple, because well, I was also in my stage of angry atheist. So it was like, okay guys, you stop believing, and now you're going to go with the name of Satan that is the same idea. And now that I totally understand what the Satanic Temple does, the name still has a negative connotation despite me understanding what the Satanic Temple is. Because well, the fact that in certain countries in South America there have been some satanic, religious sects, that is not helping at all. But at the same time, it's like the name is chosen just to attack. And as I said, people are afraid of this. It's not only that they dislike atheists. No, they actually believe that those people are going to worship Satan. As Cynthia quote, and I'm divided in here because I have been telling you all these weeks that I've been here that I'm extremely afraid of the USA turning into a theocracy. Cynthia quoted this guy saying that this is about God, it's not about Satan. And I want to quote the next part of this article because it was very strong when I read. This guy called Paul Miller. He took to the microphone and told the community, you shouldn't be here. There is no room for you here. If this his words, group does get voted in, let's do something about it. He wants the whole club out of town because they are that afraid of Satan. And then they say, when I hear Satan, I don't research that. I don't look it up. I'm not about to lie and what is that? Let it slip through my fingers. I could have stopped this from happening to others' children. So it's again, what are we going to do with our children? Please think about their children. And they don't understand what Satanists are about. And the fact that they have that name, it's going to create this terrible reaction. And I guess I understand because they are afraid. As a believer, I would have been very afraid of the name Satan. And hearing that there was a satanic group in my town, I could have freaked out as a believer. And once again, I understand the group now, and I still don't like the name. Sorry. And it's because I understand the feelings that it evokes in others. Sorry, Cynthia.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that when I was talking about like utilizing the terminology Satan, it does conjure certain images in one's mind, even with us who were religious at one point in our lives, rather. we still have some of those latent effects of being exposed to the word Satan and how it can even evoke a bit of fear, even with knowledge. And Richard, our resident religious scholar, yes, I'm going to keep on calling you that. And there's
Because
nothing you can
he's
do about it, this deal. I want you specifically to see if you can kind of like run with, something like that Teo was talking about concerning um, what the gentleman Paul Miller said about when I hear this word, I don't research it.
yeah. That was problematic. He specifically said you shouldn't be here. There's no room for you here. If this freaking group doesn't get voted in, let's do something about it. And that's a problematic thing to be coming out with. That's a veiled threat. That sounds to me like a veiled threat. And it kind of adds
veiled is generous. It's a threat.
as somebody from kind of outside the US who may be being really bad racial stereotyping here, I just get the kind of image of people jumping in the back of a pickup truck with burning torches. That's the kind of image
it torches these days. So
they've upgraded, Richard.
Yeah. But that's the image I get when I hear something like that, and it's indicative to me of a larger problem with. I mean, and I talk about this all the time on the non-profits, but I'm not going to stop talking about it. Education, the school boards and themselves need educating in the US, because we've had cases of like anti-trans things being put forward, anti-science things put forward. They wanted creationism was seriously considered to be taught in Texas, and Texas is a place, as I understand it, that informs the rest of the US when it comes to publishing school materials.
Mm-hmm.
These things shouldn't be seriously considered. And education is so important. That is the key. That's what's going to tell people the difference between Satanism as a mystical kind of creature which is going to come in the night and take your children away, and it being a legitimate religion. And that's the thing that's going to inform people that trans people and teaching about evolution are not wrong. They are. That's just legitimate. That's life. and it's not a case of we have this these crazy ideas about like creationism and this fear that trans people are going to come in the night and steal your children again, like the Satan thing. It's like, these are weird ideas. This, as an outsider to the US, this shouldn't be a thing. And when we're looking at a country which is supposed to be a world leader on all fronts, it's like, you ask people outside of the US what they think of the US, and they look at stories like this and they say, the US is stuck in the 1970s. Let's get moving forward, because I've got friends from the US, so I'm informed.
So your closest friends are Americans.
Yeah. My closest friends are Americans. I got an American friend. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm allowed to say this because I know a lot of Americans.
All right.
This isn't the case. America isn't stuck in the 1970s. America can be very progressive. It's and that's what we need to get forward to the rest of the world, this image to the rest of the world, that America isn't like it's perceived outside of the US. And it's not going to happen with kind of school board decisions that are being made currently in the US. And that's something we need to overturn, I think.
Well, that's definitely a reason that people should be more invested. I say hypocritically, be more invested in like small government and run for their local school board, because this is where these things are happening, that it's very easy for a bunch of people to get voted onto the school board who have no interest in like science or truth. So it's important that people who are skeptics and science-minded are also doing those things. She says that she's never run for office before in her life and never will. I'm helping.
All right, lending your voice in this particular aspect. Teo, I'm going to give you a wrap up, and then I'll jump in with this particular thingy and moving on. But go ahead, Teo.
Oh, I just wanted to say, when the scholar is right, the scholar is right. Nothing to say there. And what do you mean, Richard? Americans aren't like that? I'm shocked. Shocked, I'm telling you. So, okay, sorry about that, but yeah, I totally agree in the education thing. I always say that education is the only way to stop the USA to becoming into a theocracy, and also Hispano-American countries from following the USA bad example. So we need education. I think that's key, and I will keep thinking: is this the right way of doing it? Do we have other ways of doing it? And I know that in the later segments, I will have more things to say about that. So people keep in mind, education is important. You know why. We will be talking about that later on. So thank you for that wrap up, Cynthia.
Most definitely. And I added one more article, guys, that is going to be in the show notes below. And because I thought it was very interesting, I thought it was very appropriate for this conversation, and one of the reasons why I asked specifically for Richard to comment on Paul Miller's comment concerning when I hear this, I don't research it, and how the one I believe a representative from the Satanic Temple actually did her darndest to try to educate the people, but they just basically started to yell and jeer at her to sit down. So in this particular article called "Why Facts Alone Don't Change Minds," in our big debate, written in the Conversation in May 2014. One thing that I thought was thought provoking was that we assume that our clarity of vision allows us to infer from a set of facts to a particular conclusion, and that those reaching alternative conclusions must be victims of bias or confused thinking. This often results in a conviction that saying something slower or louder will do the job. Unfortunately, this is like trying to lift a mattress by one corner. There is very little movement given the effort involved. The delivery of factual information is a necessary condition to change minds. However, it is not always sufficient. But I will say this before we move on, specifically about this particular article and the next steps. The Satanic Temple will be bringing up a lawsuit. The one of the representatives, Diana Weaver, when she was asked by, Hammett, what's next, and oh, I'm sorry, when Hammett asked Greaves directly, what are the next steps? Will there be a lawsuit? He said very bluntly, yeah, yeah, yup, uh-huh, there will be. And if this conduct is allowed to stand, the rule of law means nothing. Specifically, the rule of law that they were referencing is that in 2001, the Supreme Court said all public schools with limited public forums were forbidden from discriminating on the basis of religion. That means if a school allows the formation of extracurricular clubs, I hooked on phonics work for me, extracurricular clubs, then a religious one that follows all the rules can't be banned.
I truly do not see how they're going to lose this case. That does not mean they're not going to lose this case. But like, I graduated high school in 2004, she says, not knowing her age. And there was also, I was at the beginning of like the gay alliance thing, you know what I mean, of like, we just discovered gay people in the early aughts and we're like, we'll make clubs for you. But yeah, I mean, there was a million Christian things. There was Meet Me at the Flagpole was the big one. Like, there's been a gajillion specifically Christian groups at the high school I went to, there is no legal standing that they can lose this, and yet I am not optimistic.
Well, I think that this story is definitely worth watching. I would encourage ones to, let's go ahead and just follow up, and we're good for that on the nonprofits, actually following up on stories we've done in the past. We can do it again. I definitely would love to see how this particular story pans out, because like the whole reason why the Satanic Club was actually founded in the first place, or they tried to put it into place in the first place, is because one of the parents saw that they had like a Christian club that was forming in the district, and she wanted a alternative secular club for her child, and this is why this whole thing came up. So like, hey, it's kind of like the Baphomet thing, like, hey, if you're going to stick up the 10 Commandments, we can stick up ahead of Baphomet. Deal with it, and that is that. You get it? You understand? Yeah. In your noggin. All right. Moving along. So before we actually go into our next segment, we just want to really just thank you to both our veteran viewers for getting us to up to 10.8 thousand subscribers. What?
That's huge.
It's huge. Man, I remember when we was on here, like, we're at 5,000. We're at 6,000. We're at 7,000. Just get us over 10,000. Come on, y'all. You can do it. Well, we did it, and we are running along. Bullet train is out the door, people, to get to 11,000. So if you are watching us now and you haven't subscribed yet, get on it. And once you subscribe, like, and ring that bell so you always know when a new Nonprofits episode premieres, like every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. But like, you already know that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like 3 p.m. Sundays Central Standard Time. Right now we're at Central Daylight Time. Who knows how long that's gonna last? Check episode 2 weeks ago. Then share the link to our channel with your friends, family members, co-workers, that neighbor guy you don't really like, the neighbor guy that we talk about every week that we have not produced yet, and everyone else. And let's get the word out all there, so we can start helping the fundraisers, because that's what we were really pushing for. We really want to do fundraisers, and the only way that we can do fundraisers so that we can help out the mission of the ACA is
Nice.
being able to do fundraisers. Yes, I got my coaster. I feel official. And are you aware that the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Well,
No.
you should know. And you should be knowing all that know. So check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all the ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to the episodes of the Nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, and all of our other ACA shows like Talk Heathen. Did I say Talk Heathen? No, I did not. Talk Heathen and also Truth Wanted. And you will do that so you don't miss a single episode. It's okay? It's all right? All right. I just like to say that just so I can roll R's. Moving along. Section or segment, the section of the segment, which is number 2, and this will be Jessica taking us in.
It is. Hello, it's me, Jessica, here. Doing my good work. So, a couple years in 2017, I think the the governor of Alabama, passed into law a really cool law that we all were like really down for. Essentially, it said that agencies that were adopting children out could refuse potentially adoptive parents, for any reason whatsoever. And when this happened, I think I don't want to speak for everybody else in the show, but for me, it was very much thinking, okay, that means queer parents aren't going to be able to adopt same-sex couples are going to have big problems. And certainly that's a big problem. But a lot of Elena Browning, she and her husband have a 5-year-old daughter, and they want to adopt a sibling for her. And they're Alabama, sorry about my Chicago accent, they're Alabama residents. And I'm so sorry, it's such an early accent. And she reached out to at least a couple of places and asked if the fact that she was not religious would harm her chances of adopting. So she had been, according to this article, WKRG, she'd been up front. She wanted to be sure from the agency that being quote unquote secular wouldn't be taking her out of the running of adopting children. They said, "What do you mean by secular?" And she said that she's atheist. And the response was, "I'm sorry, we could not work with you. We are not specific about one's faith, but the biological families that we work with do request that our adoptive families have spiritual life." Browning kind of asked, saying, "Do you know of anybody who can help me?" And this person said, "I don't know of an agency in Alabama who would accept your application. Perhaps an adoption facilitator out of state. I don't know of one, however." So what we're looking at now is, from what I can tell, a completely appropriate family who wants to adopt children. They have a child already, want to adopt a sibling. And from what I can see, the only barrier between them and adopting a child is that she's not religious. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm kind of shocked. I truly am a little bit surprised. I knew there was going to be the whole, we like Christian families better, but I don't know a lot about like children in the United States, but I know we don't have so many parents looking to adopt and so few children who are in need of homes that we should discount families who want to take kids in based on a nonsense bullshit reason. And I mean, the heartbreaking thing about this story is this woman has no recourse. So she is just a person who wants to take in a kid who doesn't have a family who takes care of them, and they can't because they're atheists. And I don't know, that doesn't sound super Christian to me. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a super Christian thing to do? Do you think Jesus would be like, "No, definitely that kid shouldn't have a stable home. I hate atheists so much. Kids are terrible."
I think this story is a perfect one to follow on from the first one from, because to me, this is kind of a double story, because you've got the core of the story, which is obviously the hard part, which shouldn't be happening. But also, when we were talking in the last segment about people not quite understanding things, this came across to me overwhelmingly in this story, because the woman from the kind of adoption agency seemed really confused. She didn't seem to be able to grasp the idea, and she was quite contradictory. And that contradiction, I don't think, came from a place of malice with her. I think it came from a place of genuine confusion that she didn't quite understand. And when you started to pull the layers away from the reasoning, that became, to me, quite obvious. And
Richard, can I give a quote from the adoption agency? That they said 99% of mothers request some kind of religion for the adoptive home, which to me reeks of bullshit. This reeks of a person who's never asked that question before in their entire life.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of my point, is that the fact that when you actually start pulling the layers away, that becomes obvious that she's not been asked the question, and she's not even thought about it before. And being presented with this, the primary reason she gave, I think, was that of the birth mother.
Right.
That the birth mother had requested that the child in question be given to a religious family. But when you started unraveling it, it didn't make any sense, because then she started saying things like, as you quoted earlier, she didn't know of any other adoption agencies which would allow this.
Mhm.
And and she were talking about Muslim families and things, and it just seemed to be a case that she'd not thought about it, and she was trying to give answers on the fly, and that's how it came across to me. And I felt sorry for the woman from the adoption agency in this. She was wrong, and I'm not trying to sympathize with her on that in that regard, but it's another case of where education is necessary, and I'm never going to stop backing on about education. It's
That's
another
why-
case where
That's
education
that's why
is
you are.
necessary.
That's why you're our resident scholar.
Yeah.
Richard, I'm
And
trying to tell you. Go
I-
ahead, Teo.
I love how Richard is so fixed in education, because I totally agree with that. And at the same time, I'm so fixed on the harms of religion, because this thing right here, this is the perfect example of how harmful religions are. You're going to be discriminated only because you don't have a religion. And this is a woman who is not being, as you said, not discriminated because she had a record, not discriminated because she cannot feed the kid. She, as we mentioned, or you mentioned already, she has other children, so she can do this. She knows how to do it. She has had other foster children in past.
Right.
She is only being discriminated, and this is discrimination because she's not religion. She's not religious. She's not a religious person. She's not a religion either. She's a person. Come on. And yeah, of course, it's had to be freaking Alabama, which for some reason keeps popping up on our articles always.
Sorry.
Alabama, Texas, Florida. And sorry, I had to mention this. Recently in the previous episode, I read a joke, which is more regressive, Texas, Alabama, or Florida? Yes. So it's terrible. And as Richard mentioned, it's very sad how the person is just the person from the adoption agency. She's just rejecting this other person because of ignorance. And you know what? This woman who is being interviewed, who is telling her story about how she was rejected, she's an angel. She's so meaning a very good person, not the biblical ones that kill people. She's such a great and awesome person. It's heartbreaking because she even decided not to fake being a religious person, because she could have said, oh yeah, no, I'm totally fundamentalist because you love those. No, she decided that she's not going to do that because that is not the right thing to do, and she keeps trying to do this the right way, which sadly, as we see, it's not working for her.
Well, basically, piggybacking on what you just said, I'm just going to read a part of the article that we're referencing, specifically about this woman being very truthful. Browning specifically was being very truthful about who she was, what she not believed in, and still expressed her desire to actually be able to adopt. She was asked by the agency whether being secular would automatically take them out of the running for an adoption. And she said, define secular. This is what Browning asked. And then atheist agnostic, she replied. The response was stark. I am sorry, the agency said. We could not work with you. We are not specific about one's faith, but the biological families that we work with do request that our adoptive families have a spiritual life. So I have a question for the panel. What the fuck is a spiritual life? Go.
Literally
That's
just saying you believe in anything. Truly,
What
like,
Jessica
I
said.
think it's just, I think people just want you to say, there are things that I can't see, I still believe in them, and that makes me a good person. Like, true, like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, just the act of having faith in anything is a good thing for these people. So if I said I was a flat earther, like that's a dumb belief that's based in nothing, but so is Christianity.
But 2% of people in the world would believe with you.
Oh, for real?
You can find 2% of people in the world to believe a lot of terrible shit. Like, maybe we shouldn't like base our life on what 2% of people think.
That's still a lot of people.
It is a lot. It is a lot of people.
Yeah, that is. Teo?
Sadly, it is. No, I guess being religious or having a spiritual life means believing stupid stuff related to magic and, guys who watch you masturbate for some reason. And I'm going to hell if you don't do what this magical homicidal maniac is telling you to do. That's religious as spiritual as you can go, according to me.
Indeed, indeed. What about you? What the fuck is spiritual, Richard?
Mr.
What the
Scholar?
fuck is spiritual? Indeed, I don't know. I tend to agree that it's a case of if they came along and said they were Taoist, I think they'd say, oh yeah, that's fine. You can. It doesn't matter that Taoism, it's in scriptural Taoism at least, that the physical body can live forever and be immortal, and with certain magical rituals, and there's no god to speak of. That doesn't matter as long as you're practicing something spiritual, and we can see that you're good. It
Yeah.
seems very, very weird to me, very, very strange.
Should I put that I'm a deist? Like, would that be helpful for them?
Yeah.
Like, truly, like, where is the line of
God.
what is an acceptable religion? All of
Yeah.
our founding fathers were deists, but like, I don't think if I described God as a great watchmaker, the adoption agency would be like, yeah, you're our kind of Christian. Like, I don't know. Go ahead, Richard.
Go ahead, Rich.
This seems to me as well, because I don't know if any of you picked up on this, but it actually said in the article that this adoption agency is quite happy to allow same-sex couples to adopt.
And they had a brown couple once. Can you believe it? She bragged about it.
I know, and I think that brings me on to my kind of closing statements on this, and this might be an unpopular view here, but I think the woman from the adoption agency is a victim in this, as well as other people. I think as well as the lady trying to adopt. This story to me has got layers and layers and layers of victims. It's got victims of ignorance, victims of indoctrination, victims of poor lawmaking, victims of ill thought out rules. And it's easy to come down on one side of the argument, but I think this is something where if you start peeling the layers away, it's another case of there's a wider picture here that needs addressing.
Yeah, I agree with that, Richard. And I know that like we're going to have to move on, but I do want to say this one thing that I wrote in my notes that specifically, Jessica, you mentioned the law that was signed into the legislation, the bill that was signed into law in 2017 by the governor in Alabama, who said that discrimination in the adoption process is not a new discussion in Alabama. But the year Browning's biological child was born, Governor Kay Ivey signed a law allowing private adoption agencies to turn away adoptive parents for religious reasons, including opposition to same-sex marriage. And something like this, I would love to see. I know this is not a call to action. This is just something that I would like to see. I would like to see groups like FFRF, like Freedom from Religion Foundation, be to look into this, because this is blatantly a law that is against the First Amendment of separation of church and state, or religion and government. The very thing that we are promoting, that we want. And I think that that's something that even theists should want, because and I'm just telling you, theists, that if you have a certain belief or practice that you want to do, you don't want that to be encumbered by what the government says that what you can and cannot do. Just like us on the other side, who want to be able to live our lives secularly if we want, or if we choose, don't want theistical ideologies to rule our lives, to actually encumber the things that we want, and or even how to live our lives. And I agree with what the Satanist temple said previously with the first segment, that Rules concerning discrimination should not be limited to only public institutions. Private institutions should not get a loophole when blatantly involved with discriminatory practices. Like the previous article said, this should not be unanswered. And on that note, I think it's time to take a break, y'all. Everybody breathe. You know, Richard, you're into meditation. You should get that prana breathing. You should have led us all into the breathing thing.
I was breathing so subtly, you didn't even notice it.
Oh,
we
look
all
at
thought you were
you.
dead.
It has been noted quite often.
Well, while we're thinking about Richard being dead, let's take a break from our conversation. And if you didn't tune into other ACA shows last week, here is what you missed.
Should we talk about history in schools? You know, controversial topics.
Yeah, right.
Hey, white people did a lot of really like messed up shit. Should we tell the kids?
Like a rigging set up in a few of the rooms, so like his the chandelier in a room would move on its own.
What?
And he had like
What
a
the
couple other things. Yep.
What the kind of Scooby-Doo ass bullshit is this? Was he trying to like rob the local town and pretend he was a ghost?
I don't know. Like Ollie and Alex Jones go together like eggs and bacon, like, you know, full of cholesterol and might give you a heart attack. That's just kind of how.
We'll give it a
Ish.
couple minutes here because apparently the theists are, you know, there's this sort of shrinkage that has happened with the confidence of the theists of
That
late.
happens in nature.
So-
It's cold outside.
Hey, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God who died for our sins and was resurrected on the third day because the Bible says so. Well, that's, you know, cool story, bro, but because the Bible says so, doesn't get us any closer to the truth.
God cares for the flowers and the birds, and he makes sure that they are fed and clothed and all this other stuff. No, what is it? Do not worry.
I'll tell you from memory, do not be anxious about anything, but through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I've read the book, guy.
And we are back. We are back, people. And we're just going to go right ahead and steam along to segment number 3, like I just want to call, What the fuck, Florida? And I lead. What the fuck, Florida? And I lead. So make me big on the screen. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So this particular article is entitled Florida Bans 54 of its school math textbooks for trying to indoctrinate students. Half of the prohibited titles feature critical race theory. And
I told you about it, Cynthia. I told you about it last week. I became a prophet. I told you about this, remember? I'm sure I told you.
Yeah, Teo, goddammit, you told us. Okay. Teo is no longer can be on the nonprofits because obviously he prophesied. There, we proved it. God exists. Moving on.
Bye, guys. I'm gonna miss you all.
We love you, Teo. Bye. And on that note, let's go ahead and move on. So this is actually from the Daily Mail. Oh my God. This is a runaway train for real. Okay. But this is from the Daily Mail by Ronnie Reyes. That was actually published on April 16, 2022. And we do have additional articles also pertaining to this particular topic. We do also have a CNN article by Jay Croft and Steve Contorno that was published on April 22nd, 2022. So that also talks about Florida math textbooks, critical race theory, and examples that were banned by DeSantis and crew. So what basically happened, people, is that there were about 132 math textbooks that were submitted to the Florida school district, which I looked up is actually one of the best school districts in the United States. Can you believe that? Let that sink in.
Florida has a
How are
weird
the bad
good
ones?
school district. It's
Yeah, but
weird.
it's considered, according to stats, it's considered one of the best school
I
districts in
fully
the
did the
nation.
same research you did today and was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I have nothing bad to say about
I,
Florida's
I,
education.
I was looking for like a loophole or something, but let's just move on. So anyway, so 132 school textbooks, specifically math textbooks, were actually from publishers have been submitted over to the Florida school district in order for them to be vetted in order to actually be into the school district for the upcoming year. However, 54 of those particular school books were rejected because, according to the school district and their particular panel that actually vets these books, it did not comply with its benchmarks for excellent student thinking standards. Okay. Or they were rejected because they included elements of critical race theory and social emotional learning, SEL, as it's also called, and more. Now, basically, Governor DeSantis did speak out against, not speak out against, but he did comment at a particular press conference about the rejection of these particular books. And he was saying that he wanted to make sure that the standards that we are used to in Florida are upheld by, excellent student thinking standards, and actually said, and I found this very interesting, that specifically social emotional learning was not proven to actually be relevant, helpful, can actually push forward the educational experience. But 213 studies concerning social emotional learning would beg to differ. There is another link, people, that is going to be in the show notes below concerning social emotional training or social emotional learning specifically. And I'll just give you a little bit of a breakdown. But one of the research studies propelled that the SEL academic connection to the forefront, perhaps one of the largest and well-known studies about the impact of social emotional learning by Joseph Durlak and his colleagues was a meta-analysis published in 2011, early in the history of the formal SEL research. And it synthesized results from prior studies of 213 school-based SEL programs in grades through kindergarten through 12th grade, with outcomes for over 270,000 students. It actually showed that students participating in universal SEL programs demonstrated more enhanced social emotional skills and positive social behavior, as well as lower levels of emotional distress and conduct problems. And students participating in these universal SEL programs also showed that an 11 percentile point gain in achievement, suggesting that SEL may strengthen academic success. Governor DeSantis, go figure. Now, also, one more thing that I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to go ahead and open up to the panel, is that with the particular textbooks, there were examples specifically in the CNN article that showed some of the graphics that were in some of the textbooks that were rejected actually had statistics based on racism. And we all know that when you actually show data concerning the existence of racism, it makes children of a lighter hue feel bad, and therefore we should not talk about it. And we should not talk about also the history of racism and how it actually shaped our 50 how many states we got now? 50 states.
Just
There,
the
yeah,
50.
yeah, 50. Yeah, just the 50. You know, I was about to throw in a 4 more, but that's not the case. See, you know, you
Puerto
see,
Rico, we're waiting for you, baby.
yo, and I believe there's a couple of you know, Virgin Islands up in there as
Yeah.
well. We waiting on you. But anyway,
We're welcome. We're welcome.
you're all welcome. But you know, but specifically, there were examples of, you know, these particular data points that actually showed sentiment, racism, as far as like in a data standpoint and statistics. And of course, that is a big no-no according to excellent thinking practice standards. And with that, I will yield the floor. Hold on, Jessica. Just hold your horses, girlfriend. Hold your horses.
Sorry,
I got
somebody
you.
has to
But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. And you know, Jessica, you about to bolt out the stand. So go ahead and go with it.
So what I'm hearing is that when we are quote unquote subjecting white children to critical race theory, what we are teaching them is that some children are worth protecting and some children are not. So what I am hearing is everybody's concern is that my white 11-year-old child is going to feel guilty about racism, which frankly they should.
I'm saying.
And so that's all what this is all that I am hearing is if people who are uncomfortable talking about race are trying to change their curriculum in their state, what I am hearing is we want to make sure white children and their parents are comfortable and at the and black, brown, whatever children, they can go fuck off. Like that's truly what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And maybe I'm wrong, but that's all I'm hearing is that white children cannot learn hardship, and black and brown children only know hardship and doesn't have a hero there. That's what I hear.
Yes,
Oh,
all
Jessica.
marginalized people, you know, who happen to not be white, fuck off. Continue, Teo.
Yeah, no, guys. The problem is that you don't understand. Come on, read the article. Here, clearly, Ron DeSantis, he explains, quotation mark, explains that these math books promote hatred among students, makes individuals feel guilty for racism of the past. Almost as I think that he's trying to say, no, guys, if you close your eyes and you shout la 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 and pretend this never happened apparently. Because
he can will away the brown kids who are affected by it somehow.
54 freaking math books. Math. It's like, what's his problem? He reads theory and immediately think, oh, critical race theory, my whiteness is being attacked.
Yeah.
Once again, we talk about this last week.
Sorry, I'm the only white American here. That's what white Americans think. If somebody comes up to me and is like, I'm black, and I'm like, no. Like,
right.
It's truly like every white leader thinks that if a brown person comes out to them and is like, hey, I exist, they're like, why won't you let me, a white person, exist? It's absurd and problematic. And
Jessica, obviously my blackness is attacking you. Now, Richard, I am wanting you all the way across the pond and you're reading this. I am so curious about what you have to say about this.
Do you know the thing that got me with this whole thing was the fact that the article tells us that he was grateful that Commissioner of Education, Richard Corcoran, not sure how to pronounce his name, and his team at the department of the department have conducted such a thorough vetting of these textbooks to ensure they comply with the law. Now, this really stood out to me, and it sounds like somebody. It doesn't sound to me like they were kind of doing a vet on the books to make sure they were all right. It sounds like somebody was instructed to go through the books with a fine-tooth comb to ensure unfavorable elements were removed. And that stood out a mile to me. And, you know, I'm going to be straightforward here. If they're so bothered about unfavorable elements being removed from school books, and do they want rape in the books, slavery, incest, slaughter, and racial favoritism in school books? If not, then get the fucking Bibles out of schools, because that's in there. And it's if you're going to apply a standard, apply it evenly. If you're going to remove bad shit from things that you consider bad, get all the bad stuff, even the stuff that's in your own book. Now, I'm not in favor of taking Bibles out of schools. That's not me. I think people should be allowed to have a fair education. But I'm also not in favor of taking critical race theory out of school books either. But you've got to apply your standards evenly. You can't just go and take things you do not like because of your privilege out of books and leave the bad shit in from the stuff you do like. That's not how stuff works. Come on, get your act together.
Oh, Richard, do you want to know? Oh.
No,
sorry, Jessica. My brownness for being a Latino apparently. Yeah. Okay, Richard, do you want to know what this guy calls problematic in here? For example, guys, everybody, please go and check the second link in there because there are several examples of what this guy considers racist. Yes. And there is an example where my favorite part is in this exercise set, exercise 103 and 104, you will be working with models that measure bias. But of course, in the picture, they have a nice example of four people. Sorry, I'm racist and I didn't count one person, probably because it's Afro-American, most likely. But there are two Afro-Americans. Anyways.
But one of the things, the problem, Teo, is that if you had the book, you would learn how to count and then you would have been okay. But see, what happens when you ban books that are math related? I'm just saying.
Oh,
go ahead.
Do I have to mention that I don't live in Florida? I have always been terrible with numbers. Anyways, can you believe it? So I love the part that
Florida is very good at math, famously. So it's too bad.
Okay, I was going to say 3 colored people and one white guy. That's what I should have said, because in here it's highlighted the part that says me what racist. And then it gives the example. So apparently explaining with examples and using these phrases, me racist, or immediately it's an attack on Ron the what? I forgot
Ron
his name.
DeSantis. I would like to preface what Teo was actually discussing is that in the second article, there is a photograph of 2 Black Americans. I'm going to be assuming that because they're in Florida. What the fuck, Florida? And one, I'm not sure, and I believe it's like 2, Caucasian people. One white, one woman. I'm sorry, and one man. And I'm assuming just that this the way that they're presenting, and it says like me. What me racist? More than 2 million people have tested their racial prejudice using an online version of the implicit associate test. Most groups' average scores fall between slight and moderate bias, but the differences among groups by age and by political identification are intriguing. In this section exercises 103 and 104, you will be working with models that measure that bias. I don't have a problem with that. I personally wish that more children are actually exposed to this. This working in the healthcare industry, we are talking ad nauseum about implicit biases especially when it comes to our folks who happen to be providers, nurses, medical assistants, and the like, and how we are treating certain patients who happen to be white and certain patients who happen not to be white. I can quote off the top of my head that there are the infant mortality rate amongst Black women, specifically in the United States, is almost 3 times as higher as it is with white women.
Fucked.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a stigma that a lot of providers believe that Black people do not feel pain when they are actually, coming to see providers, and that would even affect what type of prescriptions that they are being prescribed to treat whatever type of illnesses that they're dealing with. So, and we can't say that these biases just happen overnight. They're taught. Okay, they're taught, and if we don't point them out, then we're going to continue to see this, and just having this whole thing about I'm just going to whitewash certain historical points, or even not mention that implicit biases exist, racism exists, and other isms don't exist, then we're going to continuously repeat the same cycle over and over again, and it's going to be replicated in our children. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do a final wrap up before we move on. Richard, I know the Dark Overlord took you, but I'm so glad that you're back now. I'm going to go ahead and give you the first seed to close upon.
Okay, so I missed quite a lot of what was said. It's interesting to me that the governor talks about bias, because he seems to be applying more bias than anything else here. And I think this, education. It cannot be said enough. This seems to be a common theme that's run through tonight's show. And I think we really, really need to push home that there's a bigger, wider picture than an individual kind of topic going to play here, as we've seen. We've got this theme running through tonight's show, which we really need to take away and think upon.
Indeed.
I agree with the White
Teo?
Wizard. Sorry, Sage. Yeah, education. That's the solution. And sadly, that is what they are fighting here. And I'm sure that is part of the come on, Rich project. Rich, guys, you're doing the Rich Watch. Rich, is it Rich? Am I forgetting the name of the project that is trying to turn the USA into a
Project
theocracy?
Blitz, Operation
Blitz.
Yeah.
That
Blitz.
thing. That
Yeah.
thing. That is going against education. It's trying to take real science out of schools, and now even numbers, which is scary, sad, creepy. And please, guys, don't let the USA turn into a theocracy. That would be awful. Very awful.
And then the final word goes to you, Jessica.
Yeah, I'm the one who's gonna make sure the USA doesn't melt into theocracy. Thank you, Teo. I really think I'll be able to do that for my country.
Thank you, white person.
Listen, I'm
Jessica, just
so
go.
proud to be the white American here. I don't want to brag, but I'm the only white American here. Listen, I think I have to piggyback on Richard, is that education is everything, but I want to be very clear that we, as people who consider ourselves very educated, we have to meet people where they are. And I think that's something worth keeping in mind. That's all I have to say.
Indeed. Well, education, knowledge,
Was that anything?
critical race theory, all that great stuff. Yeah, SEL.
When you say SEO, it's me locking into marketing bullshit, and I'm like, yes, we do need to make sure our Google results are strong.
That is
SEO is a different thing.
But I'm an SEL.
Oh, SEL.
Emotional.
I'm
learning. Yes,
not great guess.
Okay, but that's okay. Now, people, where am I at? Okay, yeah. Okay, now, people, I have one more thing to say before we move on. You can become a member of the channel for as little as 99 cents a month. So make sure you click the join button below, and this will give you access to special chat emojis. Also, we have a brand new store. So visit tiny.cc/merch ACA or tiny.cc/merch ACA to get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. And you can also check out our new items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. And all the ACA shows feature a special limited edition of items each month. So make sure that you actually check out our store for nonprofits merch and merch from all of our other stores. And moving right along, let's go ahead and close out this Dog and Pony show with the very last segment. And this is a Step in the right direction, yeah. Step in the right direction. We're stepping in the right direction. Richard, won't you lead us in? Yeah.
This is an article that was published on the Religious News Service website on the 20th of April, 2022, by Heather Green. The article tells us, as many gathered for Easter and Passover festivities over the weekend, an estimated 550 atheists, freethinkers, humanists, and other non-believers converged on Atlanta for the American Atheists National Convention. Typically held on Easter weekend, the annual event was live for the first time since the start of the pandemic, and the excitement was palpable. Energized by the in-person gathering after such a long hiatus, the community of non-believers, a general term used for all of those who identify with these groups, was ready to discuss some of the most pressing concerns facing their ranks today. So I typically identify as an atheist. I am an atheist, but it's not a label I use. I just generally don't use it. I generally prefer the label skeptic. Ironically, which was not included in the atheist, freethinker, and humanist collection in this article, I'm not American. So some of the very, very real problems that exist for the people in the US don't exist for me in the UK. And one of the wonderful things about doing this show is that you get to hear the voices that are outside of your everyday experience. And that provides, we've been talking about education, that provides a wonderful opportunity to learn. So from your very friendly neighborhood other, what do you guys think? Take it away.
Oh, well, I'm not big on, physical activities because I prefer this. I like being able to be at the same time with somebody from the other side of the world, Richard. So, but it's cool that some of you guys are able to reunite. And one thing that I really liked is that in this meeting, there were people from Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United, American Humanists Association, Foundation Beyond Belief, Secular Student Alliance. So this means that we are starting to create atheist communities, in your case, around the country. I wish here we had those groups, but there are some smaller groups, and that gives me some hope. It means that we are not totally alone. Recovery from Religion is trying to unite people, and they always participate in this type of things as well. They already mentioned other groups, other non-believers, people in there are doing their part. So it makes me happy that these groups exist and they get together and we have our community. Take that, church. You're not the only ones with a community.
That's right. Jessica.
Boy, when I think about atheist community, I think of the 2012 Washington D.C. Made a there was a name for it and I cannot think of it off my dome. Anybody? No. It was it was 2012 and it was an atheist march on Washington, and we had our Richard Dawkinses and our Tim Minchinses. It was 2012. It was 10 years ago, and I will say it was the most significant event I've ever been to. It was
Rally?
the first. Yeah, the reason. Thank you. The Reason Rally. It was where I met Hemet, who is now my partner in crime. And I am an extrovert, and I am over the moon about these things happening again, because to me it was extraordinarily important to find people. And I'm from an area that isn't especially religious, but being in a space where I could say what I wanted to say and not feel uncomfortable and not feel protected. Truly the atheist community is one of the most important things that has happened in my entire life, and I am over the moon that it's happened again, and I hope they keep happening. And I understand it's a different situation now, but boy, oh boy, I want to go to another conference and like hang out with some people. It's the best. It's the best. If you need like somebody who feels your kind of way and you don't have that in your life, it's the fucking best.
You heard it here, people. It's the fucking best. And
Did I answer anything that you asked me,
yeah,
or did I just yell?
no, you're good. You're good. You didn't yell that time. And you're an extrovert. Who knew? Anywho,
Yes, so shocking. So shocking.
Yeah, I couldn't have guessed.
I couldn't
thank
have
you,
guessed.
everybody.
Richard, could you have
Totally.
guessed? Did you guess, Richard?
Not a clue. Not a clue.
None of us
Thank
knew.
you.
No.
Thank you.
There, and everybody, you heard it here first. But I will say this, like, yes, I'm very pleased that the American Atheist Convention did go forward. This, and I believe it was just this past weekend, where the atheists converged on Atlanta, as the article stated. And some of my favorite people were able to present, and they had a lot of different representation. Also, don't forget the Black non-believers. They were there. Mandisa, and also Company were representing. Tina Marshall from the Charlotte, North Carolina chapter of the Black non-believers was also there on a panel. Even like Will Judy, who represents the Houston Oasis, was there as well. Matter of fact, he was even honored with the American Atheist Activist of the Year 2022. And one of his particular missions is actually to create coalitions across organizational lines, and including non-secular groups, and also to create community. And I think that, like, one of the reasons why these type of conventions are important and meetups are important, and even doing shows like the nonprofits are important, is because they let people know who happen not to be believers, who are skeptics, who are agnostic, who are even still questioning, that you're not alone and community does exist, and we are here for you. And speaking of all of that and community, as I scroll on down, won't you please join our fan social media outlets? You can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord, and on our Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBMP. And if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. If you also find yourself shopping at Amazon, support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at Amazon.com and selecting the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. Be sure to use that link to help out the ACA, and we sure do appreciate it. And people, we say this every week, and we're going to keep on saying it. We value your feedback. We really do. This is not a show about echo chambers. We want to hear what you think. So tell us what you like and tell us what you don't like. Some of you do in the comments below. Or something that I really would like to see much, much more of are emails. So if you want to email us, please do. Email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. So this was really fun. Richard, Teo, thank you for joining us on this dog and pony show all the way across from the pond and down the Atlantic Ocean, Teo, and all that other great stuff. Thank you so much. Jessica, thank you for your yelling. We appreciate it.
I mean, I know my brand and it's yelling.
Yeah, and you are welcome back to yell whenever you want.
Listen, it's been 2 years since you invited me back, so I will see y'all in 2024.
It's been 2 years. I don't know. I remember being on the show with you not that long ago. No, I ain't been no 2 years. Girl, quit lying. See what happened?
Yeah, like I absolutely adore you. You're my whole entire heart. You're great. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for coming on. So, guys, thank you, all of you out there in the YouTube land and podcast land and interweb land and whatever land you in. Thank you for tuning in to Jessica Yelling.
Listen, I have to say hi to my family because they think I'll never do anything with my yelling, but fuck you guys.
You heard it here first.
I'm yelling professionally now, Mom.
Mom, you heard it here first. Jessica is yelling professionally. And on that note, we all say thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.